This is a Nekko Media podcast.
What's your pleasure, sir?
Happy Hallows Eve, Cinephiles and Cenobites. This is episode 13 of season 3. I am your host, Annika P. Today, we have a special episode. We finally debut our slice of audio horror titled Say Cheese, a chilling tale about a photographer with a dark secret. It's dark. Really, really dark. No vampires though, but this is a segment that's been in the works for some time now. We hope you enjoyed this scary story. Remember, smile and say cheese.
Richard Matsushige was a school photographer and a pedophile. He found most of his victims through his job, which afforded him an endless stream of young vixens. He liked blondes. They were his favorite. They photographed the best and tasted the best. They even, in his mind, screamed the best. That was important. They had to scream. They had to beg for their young lives. Otherwise, what's the point? His first victim, Sally Myers, a blonde girl of 8 years, had set the bar in that arena. She cried for her daddy and for her mommy, and lastly to Jesus, but none of them could help her. She was alone, at the mercy of a bad man. That power was so intoxicating to Richard. Beside the gratification itself, the power was what he enjoyed most. One regret was that it didn't last long. Sally was dead and gone before he got a chance to really enjoy himself. He had been in such a rush, worried about being discovered, leaving condemning evidence, he didn't fully enjoy the moment. But he would never, ever forget her screaming. She was his first and his best. He fantasized about it often. He would reminisce through the details of the event slowly, meticulously, savoring in his mind what had been rushed in the flesh. How he wished he could have one more night with little Sally Myers. Just one more night. But that was impossible. He had had his time with her, and that was final. He considered himself lucky. He had her locket, one of many trinkets he collected off his subjects. He was a sentimental man, or at least that's what he considered himself.
Richard speaking.
It was Marcus, Richard's boss, on the phone. A man decade his senior, Marcus was husband to a loving woman and father to a beautiful blonde daughter. Before she got too old, Richard lusted to take her photograph. All that was left was timing and opportunity.
Changing plans, new school. It's St. Jude's, small class. Shouldn't take more than an hour.
Richard gritted his teeth. He hated last-minute changes. It was these kinds of hiccups that got people caught. He would die before being caught. Prison was no place for his kind. Even hardened murderers puke at the knowledge of what he liked to do with little girls, and they'd riot to get a chance to show him how they felt.
I'll be there in 20 minutes. Shit.
Marcus never really liked Richard. He had always seemed a bit off. One reason why Marcus wanted him fired. But Richard needed this job. It killed two birds with one stone, and after all, he was not immune to the failing economy. Even bad men had bills. St. Jude's was a tiny school, 10 miles from the nearest hint of civilization, located at the far end of a desolate road bordering a forest. Should Richard find a suitable subject, he may take her in the woods. He never liked to improvise, but had done so in the past if he found a subject he especially liked. He preferred reshoots. It gave him time to plan. On reshoots, teachers sent students unaccompanied as time permitted. He would be in a little room, usually a portable, at the far end of campus instead of the gymnasium on the first round where teachers and students swarmed. No, on reshoots, he had the opportunity, and through practice, he had mastered the timing. He'd select his subject and photograph her terribly so her parents would send her back to have it remedied. By their second meeting, he'd have it all worked out. Richard got his gear out of the car and rolled toward the administration building. He decided on his bigger equipment, just in case. There was something odd about this school. The parking lot was empty, but namely, it was the silence. No bells, no whistles, no trace of children, just the billow of the fog creeping in from the forest, blanketing the asphalt. When he arrived at the office, nobody was there. Instead, there was a sign saying, "Photos in room 101. This was definitely odd. Usually there was an office clerk of some sort, some middle-aged heifer with a mustache, eager for male attention. Room 101 was located at the far part of campus, behind the cafeteria bordering the forest. He took a long look at the forest, and it felt like the forest took a long look back. A chill made its way down his spine. He hurried his pace, feeling foolish, but spooked nonetheless. Richard arrived at the portable.
Get it together.
He checked the room out. It was small, no bathroom, but a small sink behind a bunch of desks with chairs stacked on top. He checked his watch. The children would be arriving soon. He needed to set up. He set up the tripods first, then draped the background over them and hoisted it up. Next, he laid out the mat and taped the corners to the ground. Then he posted the lights, plugged the power source, and taped the cords to the floor. He didn't want anyone getting hurt. Not prematurely, at least. Lastly, and this was his favorite part, he set up the camera. He took some test shots to gauge the aperture and shutter settings, and when he was satisfied, he placed the rig on hold. Now, he would wait. It wouldn't be long. He always enjoyed the moments before the kids arrived, much like a child anticipates Christmas morning and the bevy of gifts it meant. Gentlemen of his age learned to savor moments. The folly of youth causes rushed gluttony, but he was mature enough to understand the finality of moments. You could never get them back once they had passed.
Are we late?
Richard looked up and saw a little Asian girl peeking in through the door. She was beautiful.
Where's your teacher?
At class. Should I get her?
No. Come in. Have a seat.
Richard situated her on the stool, spritzed her with his spray bottle of water, and ran a disposable comb through her hair. Her skin felt great, and he could feel himself reacting. He took a step back, admired her. He nodded. It was decided. She would be his. The only question left was whether he would take her on the spot or wait for reshoots. The lack of adult presence certainly tempted him, but they had to be somewhere. Richard set her posture, then got behind the camera.
Say cheese.
Richard looked at the monitor. The picture was crap. Her expression, the composition, everything was crap. Perfect. She would be back for reshoots, and so would he. He looked again at the monitor, then back at her. Something about her was familiar. He had never photographed at this school before, but she seemed familiar.
Send in the next person.
Shortly after, a black girl entered, and she too was beautiful. He had only ever taken one black girl, Misha Jones, and that was more than a decade ago. This little girl reminded him very much of Misha. He directed her to the chair, preoccupied by her beauty.
Say cheese.
For a moment, Richard's mind flashed back to memories of his private sessions.
All right. Send the next person in.
The next child walked in, a freckled-faced redhead. And that was it. Something was definitely up. 3 children in a row, each more beautiful than the previous. He had never encountered such a miracle.
Sit down.
Richard walked out of the portable and immediately stopped dead in his tracks. A line of beautiful young girls stood before him. 2 was great luck. 3 was improbable. A whole class full. That was downright freaky. And then he saw her. A blonde. A familiar blonde. With a locket.
No.
His skin crawled. The chill that ran up his spine now engulfed it, causing his knees to buckle involuntarily. He recognized her, the blonde, but it was impossible. She was dead, and had been for almost 2 decades. She was his first and his best. She was Sally Myers. She smiled at him. He looked down at the rest of the class. He recognized them all. They had all been his subjects. He was tapped from behind and turned sharply into the redhead. He recognized her as well. 3 years ago, he had spent an entire week with her, exploring every inch inside and out of her nubile body. And then Sally Myers spoke.
Say cheese, Richard.
No!
He turned to Sally, horrified, backing away slowly. The rest of the class joined in, cackling, reaching their little arms out toward him. Richard ran back into the room, slamming the door shut behind him. The laughter increased, causing his ears to bleed. Richard backed away into the corner.
Stop it! Stop it!
Richard was trapped. Blood from his ear hit the floor below him with a splat. He looked down at it, then back at the door.
What do you want from me?
Silence. The laughter ceased, as well as the pounding. He looked at his hands, no blood, and on the floor below, the same. He fell into tears.
What do you want?
To take your picture.
He looked up and saw Sally Myers sitting on the stool. The lights went out. Richard could see Sally approaching him with each persistent flash until the last one. The class of hideous dead girls fixed Richard on the stool, with Sally behind the camera, her finger on the shutter button.
Say cheese.
In the forest, Richard's screams echoed and echoed, but did not reach another human ear. The screams faded as St. Jude's melted into the earth. And that night, Marcus tucked his daughter into bed and kissed her forehead. She had awoken from a nightmare about a bad man with a camera. Marcus assured her all was well, and that put her at ease.
Sweet dreams, baby. You're safe now.
Marcus looked over at the doorway. Sally Myers nodded, then disappeared down the hall, into the darkness. Richard Matsushige was a school photographer and a pedophile, and he was never seen again.
It's in the photograph. It's in the photograph. It's in the photograph of love.
If you blew it, don't reject it. Just keep drawing up the plans to re-erect it. Just keep drawing up the plans to re-erect it. Just keep drawing up the plans to re-erect it.
All right, well, that is it for this episode. Thank you for checking it out. Be sure to check out this episode's show notes for links to all our social media sites. But other than that, be sure to visit our website, nekkomedia.com. That's Nekko media.com. And we also be on Twitter and Instagram. Very active on both of those. And you can check those out at cynical_mass. That's CINECAL_MASS. And feel free to get in touch through email, cinephiles and cenobites@gmail.com. Any movie recommendations, we'd love to check it out. Any screeners?
Any screeners?
We'd love to review. Any potential guests? Yeah, we love having guests on the show too.
Yeah, if you're a filmmaker, fucking hit us a line and we'll get you on the show.
A fellow.
Ask you your top 6 movies and what it's like to be an artist like you.
Oh, yes. And any fellow cinephiles and Cenobites. You are welcome.
Yes.
Any place that they can hit you up, Marks?
At villainous_kind. Instagram and fucking Twitter. But don't bother. I rarely check it except when I'm drunk. So
okay.
I'd either send it to Ono or the show.
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at thisisono. That's this is OHNO. Same goes for Instagram.
Oh no.
Yup. All right. Well, thank you again. Take it away, Annika.
This has been a Nekko Media podcast broadcasting from the Blood Cave, part of the /Potter family. For myself, Annika Pussyfoot, Mox, and Ono, keep the lights on and check under that bed because there's only one universal truth. No lives matter. That means you. Stay rating, Wokeland.
We have candy.
Probably both, it's really bad. And we do the shit all for you. And we sound like shit while we do. Tigers podcast. We broadcasting shit podcast.